My name is Malcolm Weinstein. I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, I'm a husband, a member of our Jewish community, and my involvement with the Federation began with some work on developing terms of reference before it was a federation. And then I served on the Federation board in various capacities. I was a chair of the Social Planning Council and then secretary. And from 1995 to 97, I was the president, and then served on the board for several years after that.
So, lots of different kinds of involvement. How did it all start?
Well, the Federation started because this community was extremely fragmented. 80% of the money raised by the then Jewish Fund and Council and the Combined Jewish Appeal went to Israel. And the local agencies were starving, each of them running individual campaigns. It was time for a federation. Of 200 cities in North America, we were one of the last to federate.
What would be the reason for why the delay?
I think very strong vested interests in agencies. It was a very agency-centric community, and a very strong Zionist component, which said all the money raised should go to Israel. Which left the local agencies starving for funding. So a federation definitely was long overdue. I was asked to be part of a steering committee chaired by Lois Rafel and the late Arthur Folks, which was put in place to develop terms of reference for a federation. I guess it was part of my background in organizational work and part of my background as a psychologist that led them to select me. So along with Ted Zaks, who later became president as well, we drafted terms of reference. We had countless meetings over many months, many hours, many arguments, many disagreements, but we finally reached consensus in late 1986. And the first Federation board was then formed.
And you were part of that board?
And I was part of that board.
Obviously, some challenges getting even to that point, but once the first board was in place, what were the biggest challenges that the board and the new federation were facing?
There were many. First of all, the agency-centric nature of this community meant that people didn't think an umbrella organization would really work. In fact, I remember one of our senior leaders in the community and major donors in the community telling me at one of the first Federation events that the Federation would not last 5 years and it would implode. I'm pleased to say that in maybe one of the 2 or 3 times in his life he was wrong, the Federation managed to flourish, and we have a wonderful, thriving Federation today.
Are there any really big differences that strike you as like, wow, I never saw that coming 30 years ago?
I think the growth in agencies we didn't see coming. I think in the initial years we were funding about 20 local agencies, and now there are over 40. We didn't see the dramatic shifts in population, although we did initiate some planning studies. But if you'd have told me 30 years ago that half the Jewish population would be living outside of Vancouver, I would have said that can't be, and yet that's the way it is. There is still lingering, and probably always will be, people who are firmly committed to one particular agency or another and wonder why we need to collect money centrally, and don't understand that there would be many agencies that would get nothing if we had no federation. So I think there's starting to be that kind of acceptance. Certainly when we started, we said our goal, our vision would be Federation being seen as a central fundraising agency for the community. And at one point we thought the Federation would in fact make it unnecessary for individual agencies to have to raise their own money. So there's not really a surprise, but it is unfortunate that that will never be the case, that individual agencies still need more money than the Federation can give them.
Over the course of your time with Federation, any particular stories, events, or achievements that really stand out for you as, fond or dear?
The people I've met, both in Vancouver and then by attending General Assemblies, they stand out. Some of the leaders that I was able to meet and hear those are outstanding. The trips to Israel, the connection with Israel, that stands out strongly. The young leaders that we had, we developed programs for young leadership, and the exciting thing for me is to see those young leaders leading this community, not just in Federation, but in other agencies as well. I do remember some meetings that were acrimonious, that were heartfelt, people expressing disagreement vigorously, and those were some of the very best. So I do remember long hours spent in vigorous argument, but only with the good of the community at heart.
Any other specifics that come to mind that you would want to relate that maybe I haven't asked about yet?
I think what comes to mind most is the fact that we established a community foundation that has been extremely successful. It still has a ways to go, but those were the early days. I think the fact that we've been blessed with some significant and helpful executive directors and staff, some of whom, well, at least one of whom has been here for almost the duration. My wife's involvement was significant. It was then possible for her to understand what I was talking about and vice versa over the last 30 years. That's been significant. It's been a labor of love for both of us.
One final question for
Sure.
you. I get the sense that you're a supporter of Federation, and perhaps you could tell us all about where that support comes from. Why is supporting Federation important to you?
Well, I think like most people, it starts in the home with my own family being very involved in the Jewish community, particularly my father, who served on the board of the Sharet Tzedek Synagogue for many years, my mother, who was active in that sisterhood for many years, and then my own belief that if we are to have a strong community, it's up to us. That I felt a sense of personal responsibility. I'd always been involved in Jewish causes, Jewish youth groups, and that led me to the natural conclusion that Federation was a place I wanted to be. So while serving on other boards, which were very gratifying, I thought the Federation was the one that had the most to offer the total community. So where does it come from? I guess Tikkun Olam, like many. This world is in great need of repair, perhaps more than ever, and I think federations can be a positive force.